What if the next ship on the horizon carried a flag that would decide your future for the next 500 years? The air is heavy with salt and heat. Drums echo across a village plaza where cassava bread cools on flat stones. Canoes rest on sand still warm from the sun. The sea looks wide and empty. Then white sails rise where the sky meets the water. Today we move through the history of Puerto Rico in chapters shaped by power, migration, and survival, tracing how each era reshaped the island and the people who lived on it. This is Boriken, long before the name Puerto Rico exists. The Taino, part of a vast Arawakan world stretching from the South American mainland across the Antilles, dominate the island from around the year 1000. Villages called Yucayeques cluster near rivers and fertile land. Daily life revolves around agriculture and water. Yuca, maize, beans, squash, and sweet potato grow in canucos, carefully mounded fields that protect roots from flooding. Fishing nets dry on the shore. In the plaza, aretos unfold as communal dances and songs that preserve memory. Gods such as Yokahu, linked to agriculture, and Atabe, mother of waters, are honored in carved zimi figures of stone and wood. Cotton hammocks sway between posts, and artisans shape tools from shell and bone. By the late 15th century, this world is organized and alive, connected yet unaware that Europe is pushing outward across the Atlantic. The sea looks endless. It is not. What happens when the horizon stops being empty? In November 1493, on his second voyage, Christopher Columbus sights the island and claims it for Spain. Contact becomes colonization within a generation. In 1508, Juan Ponce de Leon leads a settlement effort, and by 1509, he governs in the name of the Spanish crown. 3 shocks land almost at once. The repartimiento system forces Taino labor into mines, farms, and construction. Eurasian diseases such as smallpox and influenza move faster than any army. A plantation economy begins to take shape, oriented toward extraction rather than subsistence. Villages empty. Fields fall silent. The demographic shock reshapes the island's future. In 1511, resistance erupts under caciques, including Agüebana II. The revolt is met with steel blades, war dogs, and reinforcements from nearby colonies. The uprising is crushed. Yet extinction is not the end of the story. Survivors flee into the mountains, merge into mixed communities, and pass on bloodlines, words, and foodways. Archaeology, modern genetic and cultural evidence confirms continuity where colonial narratives once claimed disappearance. To replace the devastated workforce, Spain imports enslaved Africans by the early 1500s. The triangle forms, diminished but surviving Taino, European colonists, and enslaved Africans. The foundation of a deeply mixed society is laid in trauma. Boriken becomes Puerto Rico, the rich port, though riches flow outward more than inward. What kind of identity grows from dispossession? La Fortaleza began as a defensive structure guarding the harbor. Later, Castillo San Felipe del Moro crowns the entrance to San Juan Bay with thick walls and iron mouths. The island becomes a strategic outpost protecting Spain's Atlantic routes. Attacks come from British and Dutch forces, and privateers test the harbor's defenses. San Juan is battered but rarely taken for long. Puerto Rico is not as wealthy as Mexico or Peru, yet its location makes it vital. Beyond the forts, the economy remains modest. Sugar plantations operate in coastal lowlands, cattle graze inland, tobacco and coffee grow in later centuries. Society is rigidly hierarchical, with Spanish-born elites at the top, Creoles beneath them, and a broad base of free people of color, mixed-race peasants, and enslaved Africans. Still, a local identity begins to form. People born on the island think of themselves as criollos, tied to Spain yet distinct from it. Smuggling and contraband trade blur official lines. Enlightenment ideas drift in from Europe and the Americas, carried by books, sailors, and whispers. Across the Caribbean and mainland America, revolutions ignite. Haiti overturns slavery. The United States declares independence. Spanish America fractures into republics. If others can break away, why not here? The 19th century moves with restless energy. Across Latin America, Spanish colonies win independence. Puerto Rico and Cuba remain Spain's last major possessions in the Americas, which makes them both precious and tightly controlled. In 1868, rebels seize the town of Lares in what becomes known as El Grito de Lares. They declare a provisional government and raise a new flag. The uprising is crushed within days by Spanish forces, yet its memory outlives the defeat and becomes a symbol of Puerto Rican aspiration. Slavery remained central to the sugar economy until 1873, when Spain abolishes it in Puerto Rico. The legal chains fall, but a harsh wage system replaces them, and land remains concentrated. Formerly enslaved people navigate a society that is freer in law than in practice. Spain grants Puerto Rico a limited form of self-government, including a local parliament. For a brief moment, autonomy appears possible within empire. Then war erupts elsewhere, and the island is pulled into a larger conflict. Another flag approaches. In 1898, the Spanish-American War spreads into the Caribbean. United States forces land on Puerto Rican soil, and Spain, defeated, cedes the island under the Treaty of Paris. Puerto Ricans do not vote on this transfer. Sovereignty shifts from Madrid to Washington almost overnight. The Foraker Act of 1900 establishes a civil government with an elected lower house, but key authority remains with the U.S. Congress and a governor appointed from Washington. The U.S. dollar replaces the peso. Trade rules integrate the island tightly into the American economy. In 1917, the Jones-Shafroth Act grants U.S. citizenship to Puerto Ricans. That same year, as the United States enters World War I, Puerto Ricans become eligible for the draft, and thousands serve in uniform. Citizenship offers mobility and certain protections, yet it doesn't grant the right to vote for president from the island or full voting representation in Congress. Puerto Rico is labeled an unincorporated territory, belonging to but not fully part of the United States. U.S. corporations expand sugar plantations, consolidating land and reshaping rural life. Many workers face poverty and displacement. Migration to cities and to the mainland accelerates. A new identity stretches across ocean water, anchored in both island and diaspora. Is citizenship without equality a promise or a ceiling? The Puerto Rican Nationalist Party emerges in the 1920s, demanding independence. Its leader, Pedro Albizu Campos, condemns U.S. rule as imperial domination. In 1937, a peaceful march in Ponce ends in gunfire when police open fire on demonstrators, killing and wounding civilians in what becomes known as the Ponce Massacre. The event scars public memory and deepens mistrust. Nationalist uprisings in 1950, including revolts in Jayuya and an attempted assassination of President Truman, are suppressed, followed by arrests and imprisonment. At the same time, another political vision gains ground. Luis Muñoz Marin advocates a middle path between statehood and independence. Operation Bootstrap seeks to industrialize the island by attracting U.S. manufacturers with tax incentives and low labor costs. In 1952, Puerto Rico adopts its own constitution and becomes the Commonwealth, the Estado Libre Asociado. Puerto Ricans elect their governor and legislature and manage most internal affairs, while defense, currency, and ultimate sovereignty remain with the United States. For some, this arrangement represents modernization and partnership. For others, it feels like colonialism with a softer name. The status question remains suspended, neither fully resolved nor fully rejected. Factory whistles replace plantation bells, and highways cut through former farmland. From the 1950s through the 1970s, industrialization transforms daily life. Textiles, electronics, and pharmaceuticals roll off assembly lines. Hundreds of thousands migrate to New York, Chicago, and later Florida, forming a powerful diaspora that reshapes culture on both sides of the water. The term Boricua, drawn from Borinquen, becomes a proud expression of identity rooted in indigenous memory and Afro-Spanish heritage. Music, literature, and art explore hybridity, migration, and resistance. Yet industrial growth proves fragile. Tax incentives that attracted corporations begin to phase out in the late 20th century. Factories close, jobs disappear. By the early 2000s, recession grips the island. In 2016, PROMESA created an unelected fiscal oversight board. In 2017, with debts widely cited at over $70 billion, Puerto Rico entered Title III proceedings under PROMESA, the largest public sector restructuring in U.S. history. Then Hurricane Maria strikes in September 2017 as a Category 4 storm. Winds tear roofs from homes. The power grid collapses. Roads wash away. Thousands of excess deaths are later documented. The recovery is slow and uneven, and many residents feel abandoned. In the summer of 2019, leaked messages from Governor Ricardo Rosselló and his inner circle ignite mass protests. Hundreds of thousands fill the streets of San Juan in one of the largest demonstrations in the island's history. Under sustained pressure, Rosselló resigns. Status referendums continue in the 2020s, with statehood winning narrow majorities in non-binding votes. Congress does not act decisively. Puerto Rico remains an unincorporated territory, with U.S. citizenship, yet no vote for president from the island and only a non-voting resident commissioner in Congress. Earthquakes shake the Southwest. The COVID-19 pandemic adds strain. Communities build mutual aid networks and cultural projects, asserting agency where institutions falter. 5 centuries after Columbus's sails, the question still stands. If another ship appeared on the horizon tomorrow carrying a final decision, would it end the story or begin another chapter? The sea is still there. The drums still echo. The flag is still being argued over, and the horizon is never empty.